your Bibles and turn to the book of Acts. Acts chapter 26. Acts chapter 26. This tonight or this morning will be a precursor to Monday night, tomorrow night, or watch night, whatever that is. I know it's coming soon. Is it tomorrow night?
Help him, Lord.
It's all right. I'll go back to sleep and wake up and I'll have it all together. I'm excited. There's a slight ringing. If you can cut me down just a bit or take some of the whatever that is out. Thank you. And so I want to read a few scriptures that we might get the gist of this. And this is Paul is wrapping up his ministry. He has experienced a conversion. And there's a time in his life where he decided it's time to level up. Now understand something. Sometimes leveling up is looks different than it would look in other times because Paul then Saul had it going on. And see, sometimes you can have it all and not be anywhere near where you're supposed to be. And we're going to hear just a bit about where Paul is in this. And so I want to read through this chapter. I'm not going to read every verse, but I'm going to skip through. And so we'll read verses 1 through 6, 12 through 18, then 24 through 29. So follow along. As we go. In verse 1 it says, Then Agrippa said to Paul, You're permitted to speak for yourself. So Paul stretched out his hand and answered for himself.
My.
He said, I think myself happy. I wish I could stop right there.
You could.
He said, I think myself happy, King Agrippa, because today I shall answer for myself before you concerning all of the things which I am accused by the Jews.
Yeah.
Especially because you are expert in all customs and questions which have to do with the Jews. Therefore, I beg you to hear me. My manner of life from my mouth, which was spent from the beginning among my own nation at Jerusalem, all the Jews know. See, they knew me from the first. If they were willing to testify that according to the strictest sect of our religion, I lived a Pharisee. And now I stand and I'm judged for the hope of the promise I made by God to our fathers. And while, verse 12 says, while thus occupied as I journeyed to Damascus with authority and commission from the chief priest at midday, O king, along the road, I saw a light from heaven. And it was brighter than the sun, shining around me and those who journeyed with me. And when we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice speaking to me and saying in the Hebrew language, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Is it hard for you to kick against the goads? And so I said, well, who are you, Lord? Pause right there. Who are you? Capital Lord. I said, who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and stand on your feet. For I have appeared to you for this purpose, to make you a minister and a witness, both of the things which you have seen and of the things which I will yet reveal to you. I will deliver you from the Jewish people as well as from the Gentiles, to whom I now send you, to open up their eyes in order to turn them from to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan to God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and an inheritance among those who are sanctified by faith in me. Now, verse 24 says, now as he thus made his defense, Festus said with a loud voice, in other words, he interrupted him here and says, Paul, you're beside yourself.
Come on.
All this education that you have, all this schooling, all this seminary degrees, all of this learning, all of these experiences that you have. Now, to all this learning has made you crazy. But he said, I ain't crazy. I ain't mad. Most noble Festus. But speak the words of truth and reason. For the king before whom I speak freely knows these things. He says, for I am convinced that none of these things escapes his attention, since this thing was not done in a corner. In other words, I wasn't hiding. This I did publicly and boldly. And so now King Agrippa, he turns and addresses the king. He says, now King Agrippa, he said, do you believe the prophets? Hold on, we're back up. Do you believe the prophets? I know that you do believe. Then Agrippa said to Paul, listen, I love this part. He said, you almost. You have testified for yourself so good. You almost got me, boy. You almost persuade me to become a Christian. And Paul said, listen, I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me today might become both almost and altogether such as I am, except for these chains. He was there before. He was testifying in chains, and he was saying, I want you to experience the freedom that I have. I want you to be just like me, except for these chains. For just a few moments with this thought in mind, the power of a level up testimony. The power of a level up testimony. Lord, let the words of my mouth, even the meditations of my heart, Lord, let them be acceptable in your sight. In Jesus' name, amen. You know what I love about a testimony is it suggests progress. Let me try again. It's my quiet in here. You know what I appreciate about a testimony? That a testimony suggests that some kind of change has come. Let me try it one more time. Here's what I love about a testimony. It means that there was a test. And that somewhere along the line, that whatever and however I was tested, if I have a testimony, that means I came out on the right side of the test. Let me try it one last time. Because if I'm honest with y'all in here, I have failed some tests. I wish I had somebody. You can look at me like I'm strange, but I know I ain't the only one who's ever failed a test in here. I'm not talking about your those of you who have gone the hallways of academia and made straight A's and graduated with all. I'm not talking about those tests. I know you had to pass. I know you did well on the SAT and the ACT. I know you did well in math class. I know you were scientists. I know that you all have done and excelled in your education. But there are other tests that have come our way that we have failed. There have been times and opportunities where God has given us a chance to do what was right and we chose to do what was wrong. I'm simply saying we failed some tests. And Paul here has an opportunity to stand before the king and share his own testimony. Now, let me tell you why that's special, because too many times an attorney or somebody who doesn't understand your story is the one speaking for you. And that's why Paul begins in verse 1 by saying what a privilege it is to speak for himself before the king. He says, because he could have gone down the line and others would have shared Paul's story, and Paul would have surely been found guilty and killed. But Paul has an opportunity to stand before the king and testify and share his own story. And that's a beautiful and wonderful blessing, to be able to tell your own story. And so here it is. Paul has, as we're talking about, looking at the power of this testimony, Paul is able to share something that's really amazing. And Paul does this. Paul, watch this. The first thing that you have to understand is, if you're going to have real power in your testimony, if you're going to add power in this level up testimony, the first thing that you have to understand, and Paul says it about himself, he says he admits that he wasn't a perfect man. Let me try that one more time. Because even in your testimony, if you're going to have power in your testimony, if there's going to be something significant about your change, if there's going to be a difference in your life, then the first thing that you have to admit, and as be willing to admit, is that you didn't have a perfect life. Is that your story is not a perfect story. And too many times we don't admit to the test, and so we never get to the testimony. I ain't saying nothing. And so what happened is, he knew that Paul understood that in his life that he was on the wrong side of his level up. Let me see if I can make that plain. Paul begins to explain, and he begins to share his story, and he says, listen, I was not a perfect man. He said, in fact, I was on the other side of good. He said, in fact, I spent my life, I invested my time persecuting Christians. He said, those who believed in the way were the ones that I went after. And let me help you understand something. Paul understood. He knew the word. Paul was not some fly-by-night type guy. In fact, Paul was exceptionally educated. In fact, if you will, let me share this with you. As good as it was for Paul, God had more for him. In Acts chapter 22, verses 2 through 5, we'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about. In Acts 22, watch this. Paul, it says, and when they heard him speak to them in Hebrew, in the Hebrew language, they kept all the more silent. Then he said, I am indeed a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, taught according to the strictness of our father's law, and I was zealous toward God as you all are today. He says, I persecuted this way to the death, binding and delivering into prisons both men and women, as also the high priest bears my witness, and all the council of the elders, from whom I also received letters to the brethren, and went to Damascus to bring in chains even those who were there to Jerusalem to be punished. In other words, he's saying, listen, if you understand, if you sat at the feet of Gamaliel is one of the most respected teachers and masters, and so Paul is saying, I sat at the feet of the best. He said, I understood the strictness of the law. He said, and I was just as zealous for God as any of you were. He said, but I chose a different way. He said, I chose to persecute those who were choosing Jesus. Now let me try this, because in other words, Saul had it going on. Saul had the authority. He understood the law. He respected the law. So even when it talks about him taking letters to the high and the chief priest, in other words, when he was going to these Christians, when he was beating and brutalizing Christians, what he was doing is he would take a letter to the church, and he would get permission from the high priest that those who were practicing the way is Jesus Christ's way, those who were practicing Christians, and see that he was in a Jewish world, and so he understood that the Jews did not mind allowing persecution for the Christians, because that Christianity was still fairly new at the time. Understand, they were called Christians first at Corinth, and so understand this whole idea of Christianity was still new. And Paul said, you know what, I ain't having it. He wanted to honor the Jews, and so he would punish Christians. And so he allowed this, and so he would go and get letters and get permission to go in church, because you could not go in church. In fact, right now I saw on the news that there's some service somewhere still in the Episcopal Church, I think, that you can't, law enforcement is not allowed to go in while a service is going on. And so they've been having a service to protect some immigrants since for like 2 or 3 months now. And so 24 hours they could, in fact, during the Christmas time, you couldn't get in their service. It was that packed out. But it was that principle even from then. It was still applying now. And so just stay with me. I want to teach for just a minute, because I promise I'll preach in a minute. But stay with me. So what happening is Paul is now he's made it. He is successful. He's good at what he does, but he understands. He realizes that he is on the other side of his level up. Let the church say other side of his level up. And so understanding that Paul was. Let me give you this. Paul spoke 7 different languages. He sat at the feet of Gamaliel. He was from the tribe of Benjamin. He was college educated. He knew the law. He respected authority. In other words, you can appear to have it all, and it means nothing on the wrong level. Y'all ain't said, I'm almost through. You can have it all, but it will mean nothing on the wrong level. Let me try it this way. Yesterday, I did a wedding. Yesterday, I married Mozanne and Carlton. I did their wedding on yesterday, and it was downtown at the Dallas Library. Now it was on the 7th floor, but now when I got on the elevator at L1 in the basement, I got on the elevator with other people. And so I began then to focus on my phone, and other people push buttons. And so what happened was I got off on the 6th floor. Let me try it one more time. I got off too early. Now here it is. I was prepared. I had my book. I had my suit on. I was clean. I was ready to do the wedding, but I couldn't do anything on that level. Let me say, if I was going to do something, if I was going to be a blessing to anybody else, I was going to have to level up. Y'all ain't saying nothing. Because as much as I had it all together, you can have it all together, but if you're not on the right level, all means nothing. And this is where Paul is. Paul has it all. Saul seems to have it all together, but the problem is he's on the wrong side of his level up. And so what happens, and here's the second thing, is that sometimes, watch this, you need a hand up so you can level up. Now watch this, because here's what happened, because again, Paul is up testifying, and here is what his testimony is. His testimony is saying, I was walking along the Damascus road. He said, and then God blinded me. And in the process of God blinding me, he spoke to me. And I said, man, who is this? Who, Lord, Jesus. Who are you? And the Bible says that he said, I am the Lord, the one who you are persecuting. I am Jesus the Christ. Why are you persecuting me? Why are you kicking so hard against your own destiny? Why are you kicking against the goals? Why are you trying to be so stubborn? I have so much more for you, but come here, because I know I'm talking about Saul, then Paul, then Saul, but I'm also talking to somebody in here. I'm talking to some Saul who says, God is telling you right now that I've got so much more for you, but why are you kicking against what I'm trying to do in your life? Why are you trying to withstand the purpose and the destiny in which I am trying to push you? And so the Bible then says that Paul and those around him, he was blinded, and he had to be led to a man who would be able to declare him able to see.
Preach, Pastor.
And so as he was going, the Bible says that God began to speak to him. That God began to reveal the purpose and the plan that he would have for him. Now watch this. And the reason why I said sometimes you need a hand up so you can level up is because the Bible says that even after his conversion, when he went to be with the disciples wouldn't receive him. The disciples said, man, we don't trust you. Man, we have seen the work that you have done. We have seen you persecute. We have seen you allow. In fact, you remember Stephen, Deacon Stephen? He said, while Deacon Stephen was being stoned, you held the coats of the Roman soldiers who were killing him. And Saul says, yes, I admit, he said, but that was my old life. Now watch this. He said, yeah, that might have been your old life, but it still affects us now. We don't trust you. And that's when a guy named Barnabas stepped up. Now Barnabas stepped up, and here's what Barnabas did. Barnabas said, wait. And he pulled Paul and said, listen, guys. He said, I can testify And let me tell you something. Barnabas was not anybody who was major in the community. But Barnabas had the respect of the community enough for him to say, wait a minute, I can tell you that what he's telling you is true. I can tell you that I have seen with my own eyes that his life has changed. Come here, church. Because somebody ought to be able to say of you, I can testify with my own eyes that his life and that her life is changed. And it was because of Barnabas's hand up that Paul was able to love. Y'all ain't saying nothing. Because if he had never been accepted by the disciples, it's a good chance he wouldn't have had the other 14 books of the Bible that Paul wrote. You understand? If he had remained Saul, we never would have had Romans. We never would have had 1st and 2nd Corinthians. We never would have had Philippians, Galatians. Because he leveled up, we were able to be blessed. Sometimes if you choose to stay at your low level, we will never get the world. We'll never see that your life has been changed.
Hello. Good morning.
It's when opportunity intersects with desire that you can have a level up. Right there in verse 24, Festus said, he said, man, you crazy. It was Festus. He says, listen now. He said, in his defense, Festus said with a loud voice, the Bible says, he interrupted and said, listen, Paul. He said, now you done got beside yourself. He said, now I know you testify. He said, but you done got beside yourself. Now all this learning, all this talking about Gamaliel. You think because you speak 7 languages, you think that because you were educated at the finest of university, you think it had made you crazy. Now you done got beside yourself and it's made you crazy. And Paul says, I'm not crazy. He says, I know good and well what I'm talking about. He said, in fact, I've got some other witnesses who will testify to what I'm saying. But come here, let me, can I just add this in to Sean? If God is going to level me up, I don't want no little level up. I want the kind of level up that's going to make people say, oh, he done lost his mind. I want the kind of level up that people say, he is crazy. I want people that when I tell them about how God has leveled me up, I want them to question my sanity. Oh, you got how many degrees?
Come on,
3?
sir.
That's crazy. Y'all ain't saying nothing.
Come on,
You
sir.
got how many houses? What? You got real? That is crazy. I want somebody to look at my blessings and say, man, that is crazy. Yes, I have. Because understand something, that when God levels you up, can't nobody bring you down.
Oh,
They don't call you crazy, but walk in your level.
My God.
But the Bible says, right after this, in verse 26, it says, verse 27, 28, it says, and I'm closing with this, let your work be your testimony. I'm through. But let your work be your testimony. Verse 27, it says, King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? He said, I know you believe. And then he says, King Agrippa says, Paul, he says, listen. He said, man, I've sat here and listened to you talk. And I've heard how you were coming down the Damascus road. And I heard how the Lord changed your life and all that he's done. I understand your story, what happened with you and these disciples and what you have gone around preaching and teaching. And I remember how sold out you were to the other side, and to see you with such boldness preaching the opposite of what you used to do. He says, man, he said, almost. He said, man, listen, you almost.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ooh. You almost persuaded me to be a Christian. He said, man, listen, you almost got me. But here's the question I have to ask. I want my my life, I want to live my life in such a way that my testimony can make an unbeliever believe. So here's the question. What part of Paul's testimony was the part that almost persuaded Agrippa to be a Christian?
Good question. Good question.
But what was it? What part of his testimony?
Come on, right there.
What did he hear him say that made him almost become a Christian? Was it when he was talking about in Philippians when he sat over in Europe or in Asia Minor writing Philippians, and he had come to a place in life where they had done all that they could do to him, and now Paul had begun a prison ministry, and he no longer cared, he no longer wanted to live for himself. And so he uttered these words in chapter 1 verse 20. He says, "For me to live is Christ and to die is gain." And then he's testified it so convincingly that even King Agrippa said, I almost became a Christian. But was it in Acts chapter 16?
Well, take your time, sir.
Where Paul had been doing the right thing for some time now. And in fact, he was doing the right thing in the right place and going the right direction. And people around him were even saying the right things, but with the wrong motive. And because of their wrong motive, he cast out of an evil spirit out of a girl. And now him and Silas wound up in prison. And now it was at midnight. And the Bible says that even at midnight, when he was doing what was right, doing at the right time, at the right place, going in the right direction, and did the right thing, even if it wasn't popular. And now at midnight, the Bible says that he and Silas were up having praise and prayer service and worship service at midnight. The Bible says that the other prisoners were listening to him, so much so that the jail began to reel and rock, and the doors opened, and they stayed there. And Paul got a front page apology. I wonder if that's what made King.
Was that what it was? My God. Yeah.
I wonder if that's the part of his testimony that made King Agrippa almost become. Maybe it was in chapter 20 of Acts that maybe when Eutychus was sitting in the window, he was sitting high in worship. So y'all ain't saying that the praise team had sung, the praise dancers had done their thing. The Bible says that it was the last night of revival, and Paul was up preaching. It was late. It was around midnight that night as well. And the Bible says Eutychus sat up in the window, and the Bible says somehow he fell asleep in church. Now I don't know who let him fall asleep, but he fell out of the church. And the Bible says that Paul stopped preaching. And the Bible says that he went downstairs and he saw the young man came there. And the Bible says that he threw himself on the young man. He covered him up. And the Bible says that life began to come back in that young man's body. And the Bible says that he got up alive when he was dead. I don't know about you, but maybe that's what he told King Agrippa, that almost made him become a Christian. Y'all ain't saying nothing. I don't know if that's what it was, but maybe it was in Romans chapter 11 and 12 when things had fallen apart and Paul was trying to get people to come back together. And he said, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, that you might become holy and acceptable unto God. He said, that's just your reasonable service. He said, but don't just stop there. He said, I want you to renew your mind. He said, let your mind be transformed, because it's in the transformation of your mind that will transform your actions. Have you got a witness in here? I'm through now. But maybe it was in Ephesians when he said, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. I don't know what he's saying, but I wonder what part of Paul's testimony began to change Agrippa's mind. Maybe when he said, and we know that all things work together for the good of him who loves God and who are called according to his. I don't know what part of his testimony was the part that almost made King Agrippa. But let me tell you something, because I don't know about you, but I know the part that made me want to be a Christian. Because when he said in Romans that if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus Christ, and if you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, the Bible that made me want to be saved. But it was one dark Friday upon a hill called Calvary when I realized that my Savior died for me. It was one dark Friday when they were whipping my God, when they were putting nails in my God, when they were crowning my King, that made me say, Father, I want to be a part of your kingdom. I was like that thief. Will you remember me in the day of paradise? When you come into your paradise, remember me. I wish I had somebody. Is there anybody else in here who can testify that it was at the cross when you first saw the light and the burden of your heart rolled away? Was it there by faith that you received your sight? And right now, we can be happy all the day because of what happened at the cross. Is there anybody here that's thankful for the cross? Is there anybody here that's glad he died? Is there anybody here that's not just glad that he died, but you're glad that he got up with all power in his hand? I don't know about you, but that's not just cliche. I'm so glad that he got up. Because he got up, we can level up. Because he got up, your marriage can level up. Because he got up, your money can level up. Because he got up, your faith can level up. Because he got up, your joy can level up. Because he got up, your patience can level up. Because he got up, your faith can level up. In the name of Jesus.
Hallelujah. Glory, 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 glory.
Your testimony will be the testimony that changes somebody.
It is. That is it. That is it.
It's your testimony.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We can shout on Paul's testimony.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But Paul's testimony ain't going to save your coworker in the next cubicle from you. It's going to be your testimony. It's going to be what you say and share.
What you say.
Because they can see you.
Yes.
And so you can say, I was this.
Yes.
And now I'm this.
Yes.
Saul had it all.
Yes.
But he was on the wrong side of his level up. It wasn't until he was blind. And let me just say this. Don't let the Lord have to put you flat on your back for you to finally say, okay, Lord. Don't let it come to that. And so that's what it came to for Saul. He had to blind him. He had to take everything away. And of course, when he said, who is it, Lord? He knew the Lord. He knew right away. Again, he had been educated. He had been to school. He knew. He spoke Aramaic. He spoke Greek. He spoke Hebrew. He understood all the language. He understood. But this was a God thing. And sometimes we run until God stops us. Let me try one more time. Don't make God have to stop you. Don't make it have to blind you. Go ahead and do what you know you're supposed to do. You know, you already know because you fought against it. You already knew because you decided you didn't want to do it. you chose and you said, you told God you weren't going to do it. But I got good news. Today's a good day to surrender. Today's a good day to surrender.
My Lord.
Today's a good day to give up. Today's a good day to give up your resistance. You're kicking against the goals, kicking against your destiny, kicking against your purpose. Don't keep doing that. Today can be your day. Lose this fight so you can win the war.
Wow. Glory to Jesus.
Lose this fight so you can win the war.
My God.
Of course, on the other side of Paul's having it all was more than half the New Testament. We would have never got that if Paul didn't say yes. He could have come up off of that Damascus road and said, I'll just stay blind. Then we would never have had what we call the Roman road to salvation. We never would have had one of the most quoted scriptures. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That only comes through your yes. That only comes through your yes. Listen, if you're here, the first yes that you got to give is a yes for your heart. A yes to salvation. That's the first yes. It's giving your heart. Giving your heart to salvation. The second yes is not just to your heart, but it's to your actions. And it's one thing to talk about it. Paul had to be about it. He couldn't just say, I've had this amazing transformation. It was his actions. It was what he did. And people could testify to what he had done on both sides. I didn't expound on this maybe on the next service, but his history haunted him. Listen, sometimes who you used to be will be ever before you. And there are times when people won't have any problem at all reminding you of who you. They don't care nothing about who you are now. They'll all, because that's all they have is your history. That's it. That's all they have. So they'll hold on to your history, hoping that it will handicap you. Hoping that the moment that you think that you are something, they can call you by old name. They can say, remember this? Remember when we went to, remember that night at the, yeah, I remember it. The Lord delivered me from that. And by the way, my name is now. Because when Saul was in that change, they didn't keep calling him Saul. His name was changed to Paul. He had done so much wrong in the community, they couldn't go in and say his name and get respect. So God had to change him and his name to give him a new opportunity. But that wasn't the last new opportunity that God was handing out. It's Christmas time. And even on Jesus' birthday, at the time in which we celebrate his birthday, he's still handing out new opportunities. So maybe it's your opportunity. Don't miss it. Opportunity for you to give God the next yes. One is salvation. Maybe you're here and you say, I am saved, but I don't have a church home. Listen, I'd love to be your pastor. I'd love to walk this walk with you. If by chance he said, I am saved, but I do have a church home, great. Give God your yes. Yes to his will, yes to his way, yes to his right now using you. God can use you. And he wants to use you right now, not the next time. Wow. He wants to use you. Why don't we all stand?